Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Friday, March 19th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. Britt Giroli enjoying some work in Arizona. Enjoying some work is rounding up. Enjoying downtime around work, I'm sure, but even that in a limited capacity. So Britt will be back with us next week and hopefully with a few great stories. So hopefully she's enjoying her time in the desert. How's it going for you on this Friday,
It's
Yeah, all right.
it's going. March is a crazy nutty month. It's a crazy nutty month. At the end of March, I'm looking forward to a trip, our first big trip since COVID, I guess. We're all going to hop into the car and go to the Grand Canyon,
Nice.
see my vaccinated mother, and go to a couple sightseeing things around there in Arizona, and then drive back. Be a weird time to take time off the first week of the year, but in fact, how many decisions did you make about your fantasy team in the first week?
Not that many.
And how little do I want to write, short sample stories on the first week?
Yeah, I mean, you
Not
have to
actually the
pay
worst time to
attention.
take off.
Like, you do have to make moves the first week because there could be some pop-up players, especially in a year like this. But as far as reacting and writing about it, there's not a lot to write. So it seems like kind of a really good time, especially if you can catch games at night and do some sightseeing during the day. And the Grand Canyon, it's very grand. It's amazing. It's actually every bit as cool as people make it out to be, maybe better. Like TV, it looks amazing. I don't even know if that really does it
It's
justice,
one of those
though.
things that's really hard to take a picture of. Like, the bigger something is, the less the picture really captures it, unless you like really blow it up and have like a huge canvas and like a really great camera. If you just like look at a picture of the Grand Canyon, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, let the
But when
pros
you're
with the
there,
really
just like,
fancy equipment do it because it's
yeah.
just not going to be the same. Like, I know phones take great pictures now, but get a professional picture of the
It's
Grand
like, have you
Canyon.
ever tried to take a picture of like clouds, or like that's just like a beautiful, like, I've taken a picture of clouds and then looked at it later and I'm like, what was I thinking?
I've not done
Absolutely
that.
not a compelling picture.
Like, you thought you saw something in the cloud, you're like, I'm going to get a picture of that. That's a Homer Simpson cloud. You looked at it later and you're like, I don't see
No
it.
idea what that is.
It's not there anymore. A lot to talk about on this episode beyond our amateur photography skills. And I wrote the Rookies of Interest piece finally. It took me way too long to write it, in part because, as Eno said, March is crazy. So the time I had to write was less than I thought, but it's been a lot of fun doing guest spots on pods and doing this show and the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast. So I'm glad it finally is out and hopefully with enough time for people to enjoy it. We'll talk about some players that were in that piece. We had a related question from a listener digging deep for some surprise players, looking for the next Ty France. There's a couple ways that we could answer that question, so we're going to go down that path. Had a question about platoon combos and research for those and the impact of previously shortened seasons on pitcher workloads. So a lot of ground to cover on this episode, probably a few other tangents along the way. But the Rookies of Interest piece, I mean, this is a year where you and I were chatting about this a bit yesterday while I was putting the finishing touches on it. It's almost like we have to take information we're getting now in spring training, kind of match that with the data we had from 2019, and sprinkle in reports from the alternate site for players that did not get to play in 2020. It's like choose your own adventure. It's actually more like Mad Libs, and you're trying to fill in a bunch of these details, and you're just not quite sure what to do. Bobby Witt Jr., who we brought up on Wednesday's pod, was the guy we were going back and forth on yesterday, and I landed on putting him in the Jared Kelenic, Wander Franco range of the rankings, which to me is more of a game theory play than anything else. It's that you are hoping that one of those three guys ends up on your roster and just crushes right away. And it's a pie in the sky sort of expectation where you could have one guy out of that group in a typical mixed league with a normal sized bench. And you can't really have more than that because if they're all in the minors for a stretch, you probably can't keep them all in those situations. So that's sort of how I placed Witt with those guys. The hardest part, though, was justifying it from a skills perspective I was trying to figure out, are we surprised by what the Royals are doing with Bobby Witt Jr. simply because he didn't have a 2020 minor league season? Because if his minor league season had been, let's say, 50 games at low A and 50 plus games at high A, okay, we would have expected him to start this season at double A. And a guy that we expect to start at double A, making the big league roster, is surprising, but not stunning. And if he'd played at 3 levels last year, if he'd actually played some games at double A last year, that wouldn't be that surprising if he was in camp and battling for an opening day roster spot. So if you retrofit it based on the way that the Royals are talking about Witt right now, you kind of have to fit him into one of those two paths to sort of justify what's going to happen. But at least then you're not just completely in the mind blown phase of, oh, this guy was at rookie ball last time we saw him and he had an 85 WRC plus when he was there. Like, because if you just look at that, none of this makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a really tough year for prospects because for evaluating prospects for that reason. And even the kind of reports, like, it is better probably to consider the reports that we get through the people who track these things, James Anderson, Keith Law, the people that are listening, the people that have Rolodexes, we should listen to them because they are talking to people that are seeing these players and know something about them, and we don't know anything. At the same time, teams always have ulterior motives when it comes to releasing information like this, pumping them up for a trade or denigrating them because they're currently in contract negotiations with the player for an extension or something. There's all sorts of reasons to kind of try to push or prod public evaluation about a player in a certain direction. Like, what if you were you're very sure you were not going to play Bobby Witt in the major leagues? Then you could kind of do a whisper campaign of like, well, he didn't make that much contact at the alternate site, I don't know. I don't think he's ready, and then you get a couple prominent writers to be like, well, Bobby Witt didn't make much contact at the alternate site last year, and so I'm not, give him a little bit of time, it's like, but did Bobby Witt make a lot of contact at the alternate site? I don't know. It's in fact a thing I've heard that he didn't, that he might struggle with contact. Well, he didn't struggle with contact in rookie ball. I mean, he had a pretty good strikeout rate. So where did he struggle with contact?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know where that came from. I don't know why it's out there. I don't even know. I don't know how to believe it. So it's a really tough time. And at the same time, you don't want to just be like looking at 2019 and be like, well, that's who this guy is. And then every team's going to treat, even when they start getting assigned, right? That will be a major hint, I think, right? When they start getting assigned, there'll be sort of an idea of like, oh, how did this guy progress, right? Even then, it's difficult because, like, I was looking at Oswald Peraza. He's a shortstop in the Yankees organization and looks like a hit tool guy. I like hit tool guys. I'm not sure about the power, but like a hit tool guy at shortstop. Maybe he doesn't end up playing for the Yankees, but they always make trades, and he's an interesting guy. And I found actually that I think generally J2 guys are international guys are being undervalued a little bit in prospect drafts and in different places. In my Devil's Rejects League, for example, I think we got like 3 or 4 international guys from J2 signs because the information there is even lower, right? A lot of them signed in the middle of this or the year before, had like a tiny sample somewhere, and then we don't know what they're doing. They're all young, right? They all seem like they're really far away. But some of those international guys ascend quickly, and you see them like Juan Soto, like it was here immediately. It felt like, so Peraza got assigned, is a long story short. Peraza got assigned to high A, which I guess is decent. It gives him a shot at double A this year. And I think that says that they at least they weren't going to keep him back any worse than that. I think that it's a good sign for Oswald Peraza. But the fact that CJ Abrams and Bobby Witt are still in camp, even if you don't think that they are going to break camp, means that their teams see them as top 10 type prospects. I
The
think
other
you
thing
could
that's
almost use that as a
crazy,
proxy.
I mean, the other thing that's pretty wild is just that if you think about CJ Abrams and how prospect analysts have been talking and writing about him for the last year, he seems to be closer than Witt in terms of where he's at development wise. And if Witt's borderline ready for the big leagues now, then Abrams in almost any other organization would be on the cusp of making the opening day roster. But because he's with the Padres, it's just not going to happen right now. And
But
we'll
I
kind
mean,
of wait and see.
he's 20, like Oswald Peraza, right? He's 20 and he's on a loaded team and he's still in camp. I mean, that's meaningful to me.
Yeah, I think it matters quite a bit. Like how teams handle players, the timing of the moves. I think that does give us some insight into what they're prioritizing from a development standpoint. And I'm kind of anxiously awaiting details from the Yankees about how they're going to handle Jason Dominguez. Like, where's he going to go, and how quickly is he going to move? I think if you're trying to predict someone who's going to move aggressively, he's going to get a pretty aggressive arc based on most forecasts. But where does it start? Is it low A this summer? Is it actually high A or double A? I mean, the way some people talk about him, you'd think that maybe they could test him and move him pretty quickly. And I did look back at a couple other players when I was trying to figure out how unprecedented Bobby Witt's path to the opening day roster really would be, and kind of landed on two different players. Carlos Correa, who was actually quite a bit younger than Bobby Witt when he was drafted first overall. Witt's a little old for a high school kid, but not something really to be held against him. But Carlos Correa took a lot more time to get through the lower levels of the minor leagues, in part because he was 17 when he was drafted. So that factored in.
There was also like the questions about his defense and like whether or not he'd be a third baseman.
Yeah.
He was too big for it.
And he had a leg injury, fractured tibia, I think, in high A that cost him part of a year. So that slowed him down a little bit. He still moved really fast, relatively speaking, though, if you look at his arc to the big leagues. And then there's Starlin Castro, who is one of the fastest moving players in the minor leagues of the last 20 years, really, because he skipped, I think it was low A entirely and triple A entirely. And it was pretty amazing to see, looking back. Really good contact skills as a prospect. I mean, people think of Starlin Castro as boring oatmeal now, and I think that's obviously true at age 30. He's not even.
There's something to remember when you get all excited about prospects, that sometimes the best prospects end up as Starlin Castro, and it's good. It's fine.
Yeah, he's had a good big league career to this point. But yeah, he skipped low A entirely, debuted at high A as a 19-year-old, played only 57 games at double A between 2009 and 2010 before jumping all the way to the big leagues and playing 125 games in 2010. I mean, that's really aggressive for a guy who signed as an international free agent too. So I do think the timetables in general are difficult to predict. It's one of the hardest things for us to do from the outside. And we do have to really consider the various factors that are being passed along by people like Keith and James that have those at least secondhand accounts, right? They're talking to someone who was watching players that the rest of us didn't get to see last year. And we have to at least take that into account. But we also have to distill it accordingly, because there could be narratives around that are designed to mislead us or push us in a certain direction for a particular reason.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it right. I've taken, there's some lists I trust, Keith Laws, Eric Longenhagen, James Anderson, or probably my favorite prospect lists, and then kind of triangulate them, look between them, look at who's highest on one of those lists, and go for that. I ended up taking, in my 12-team restocking minor league draft, JJ Bleday, who I think is easier on the easier end, right? Like college guy on a team that needs him. Didn't strike out that much when he first got a try. Probably pretty close to the major leagues. You know what I mean? Like I like Bleday. And then I took Brian Rocchio and Oswald Peraza in the next two rounds as just, teenagers that people seem to like. Like, yeah. I don't really, there's not that much video out there even to lay eyes on it for these two guys. So, shortstops in the Indians and Yankees organization. But If we're gonna have like a prospect of the week, month, year.
We can get back to the week if we want to. Yeah, the year. That's an award. We can probably get back to prospect of the week once the minor league season starts. It's going to take a little while.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when they're actually playing games and we can say, "Oh, look, this guy's really popped," you know. But let's wait till the next segment to do a prospect of the week. I think.
All right. Well,
that's going to be useful.
Let's try this. Let's try to find
or you did rookies of note. Do you have a prospect of the week off of your rookies of note?
Oh yeah, I've got several to choose from for those who have seen the piece. I actually think the prospect of the month for me is Miguel Yajure. And he came up when the Pirates made that trade with the Yankees that sent Jameson Taillon to the Yankees. Yajure, look, he's going to get a chance in this rotation sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's from the jump, so I don't know if he's necessarily draftable in a lot of mixed leagues, but use your watch list. Set up your watch list. Have players ready for when they debut so you don't forget about them, especially because if they get called up and they have no stats at the time your waivers run, they're going to be totally buried in the rankings in season. We're starting to see a guy that really, I think if he'd had a 2020, would have probably pushed his way up into a lot of maybe top 100 prospect lists. I think that was within the range of outcomes, overshadowed, of course, with Davy Garcia and Clark Schmidt in New York. And I think the Pirates are doing a legitimately good job of rebuilding their minor league system under Ben Cherington. That front office is at least putting the organization on the right track, as we've said before. I think with Miguel Yajure, is he an opening day guy? Not necessarily. But if he gets the opportunity this year, I think he stays in the big leagues for good. I think you're going to get a decent strikeout rate. It's 4 pitches with command, and it's all about opportunity in that Pittsburgh rotation. Just like we're always chasing hitters getting a chance in Baltimore as deep league pickups, pitchers getting a chance in Pittsburgh, I think, are going to be an actual opportunity to get in. We talked about JT Brubaker, not a prospect, but a guy that's pretty safely in that rotation. Like every opportunity to max out innings is there for a guy like Yajure in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And then, as is my want, I like Yajure, but as is my want, I pick old dudes that are barely prospects that might have an opportunity soon. I love those guys. So Buddy Reed in Oakland, I think, is a guy deserving of some attention. He turned heads with some great defense, 2 homers in his short stint so far in spring. They've played him a lot. He seems like, you've got Blaze Tom, who's trying to make that team, Kai Tom, and he may be beating out Seth Brown for the last outfield spot because I think he's a little bit more valuable defensively. And he's got a bunch of patience, and he shows some pop in the spring. So if Tom beats him out, I think Reed and Brown are the next outfielders, and Brown could just be one of those types that just keeps getting passed over because Reed is more exciting. And if the A's go into a bit of a rebuild, which is possible, and they're getting to the point where some of their stars are getting more expensive, and Oakland really likes to trade away their guys before they get too expensive. If they trade away Chapman or Olsen, I think that the sort of the positional core basically isn't there for them. So then all of a sudden they may be trading away a lot of guys. They never do a full rebuild though, so it's going to be really hard to watch them. But I think Reed could get a chance. Power speed guy. I'd be watching his strikeout rate this year if they start having minor league games, because it's all about if he can make some contact and he's got that power and speed, could be the next center fielder.
Yeah, it might just be a starting job for part of this season and more of a 4th outfielder role in the future, but definitely a guy that could do a lot for us as fantasy players with the tools that you mentioned.
Inching closer and steals bases. I mean, I think a lot of times we're just looking for bags from the young guys because the older guys don't give us bags.
Yeah. And I think that was something as I kind of built out the bottom part of the list, like the dart throws really in the rookies piece. Guys like Jared Oliva and Daniel Johnson really sort of popped to me just because all
They
they have to
might
do is
steal bags.
play, and they're going to run if they get chances. I mean, I think I was reading Eric Longenhagen's report on Daniel Johnson. He's skeptical about the swing actually generating as much power as Johnson has shown in the minors once he gets up against big league pitching. But I think he's got a good eye at the plate, and speed is a tool that he can leverage to stay in the lineup. And he's got a good arm too, so he's a good defender, possibly in the corner. So maybe not prototypical corner outfield power, but if he's a good defender and he gets on base and he can steal some bases, that might be enough for him to secure a lot of playing time in Cleveland. I think with Daniel Johnson, you have to see where Josh Naylor plays and whether or not they get rid of Jake Bauers. I think they will get rid of Jake Bauers. I don't think anyone else wants him, so they could probably DFA him and sneak him through and keep him at AAA if they really want to have him around in the organization. But to me, like playing Josh Naylor at first base back at his natural position makes a lot of sense, especially if you can put someone like Daniel Johnson in the outfield instead. I'd rather play Johnson than Bauers, all things being equal.
Yeah, with Bradley showing that power upside, I think he's, a little bit more of a prototypical first baseman. And Johnson provides more versatility. And if you think about the worst teams around the league that would claim Bauers and play him, I don't think that many of them need a first baseman or a kind of light bat outfielder like this. I mean, he's just light for being a corner outfield first baseman. And, the Giants at this point have a few options at those positions. They're not, I don't think we're going to claim him. The Rockies like CJ Cron looks like he's going to be their best first baseman in years. And corner outfield. I mean, I guess that would be the cruelest joke of all is if they claim Jake Bauers and play him over Sam Hilliard and just drive the knife deep into my chest. The Orioles seem to have like 5 first baseman, corner outfielder, or 6, right?
Yeah, they got plenty of options there, and I think
Tigers.
None of those guys. The Tigers are okay depth wise too. I mean, the one thing that Bauers could do that some of their bench guys don't do very well is you get on base more potentially, because they do have some very low OBP bench guys. So if they're moving on from Goodrum and Harold Castro and guys like that, maybe they see him as an upgrade. But I think it's just temporary until someone better gets DFA'd.
Yeah. Well. They may just do the thing where they have Bauers make opening day, make sure that everybody else, figures out their 40-man, and then bring up Bradley in the second week and DFA Bauers and hope that he sneaks through that way.
Yeah, that could be the plan. Related to the Impact Rookies piece, we had a question. I mentioned this in the intro. PCH is looking for some players like Ty France is for this season. So he's looking for non-prospect or peripheral prospects and late bloomers for the 2022 season. So guys he should get now to stash away with the hopes that either playing time will open up as it did for France with the trade to Seattle, or that just, an opportunity will happen because they're actually good players and their organizations are going to learn that over the course of this season. So digging deep for some surprises, did you turn up any interesting names that could kind of fit the bill of being next year's Ty France?
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem of definition. I think if you think of Ty France as basically a part-time player that is getting a chance, which is part of what, like, he was going to make the Padres roster, right? He just wasn't going to have a starting role, and he got kind of traded into more of a starting role. Then, I thought of David Bodie in Chicago, just having superior power to Nico Horner, could play his way into a starting role. There could be trades there. I doubt that the Cubs are really buying, but maybe they sell Bodie to somebody that starts him. There's some positional versatility there, second and third. He's not just a first base type. And then the other one is Abraham Toro, who I think will either get traded when the Astros buy, or find his way to the outfield, or be like a big injury replacement for somebody. So I still think of him as highly that way. And I think Tyler Freeman has, used to be a prospect, but now seems to be an afterthought on most prospect lists. Still makes a lot of contact. We don't really know what the power numbers would look like for the last year. and we know that the middle infield in Cleveland is pretty fluid.
Yeah, Freeman, I know our friend James Anderson is still on him, but definitely feels a little forgotten with Andres Jimenez in Cleveland after Lindor trade and Ahmed Rosario there as
Cesar
well.
Hernandez, and
But Freeman's not as far away as you might think. If you're digging really deep, I mean, the Padres might have reloaded with another Ty France in Brian O'Grady. I know that's a Nando DeFino favorite from a couple of years ago, but O'Grady, he's already 28. He's a left-handed hitter, but he has power. He has speed. He has a ridiculously productive AAA season on the ledger, 126 WRC plus in 2019 when he hit 28 homers and stole 20 bases at that level. He was even a bit better when he first arrived at AAA in 2018, a 157 WRC plus there. I'm just curious to see if he finds any playing time because he went from one crowded depth chart in Tampa Bay last year to another being a Padre right now. But if he ends up on a rebuilding team compared to someone like Jake Bauers, who I would say is just the purest form of organizational oatmeal, Brian O'Grady is the kind of guy that you say, oh, actually, what happens if we give him some playing time? Like there could be a Dylan Moore power speed combo that comes out of relative nowhere if playing time opens up. It just seems so unlikely that O'Grady gets that chance in San Diego.
Yeah, it's like it's a combination of like what you think of the player plus the chance. That's I think that's how you define Ty France in the end, is like not really a prospect, but enough of a prospect that somebody valued him and got him, right? Enough of a player that somebody valued him and got him and gave him a chance. So that's a really hard thing to define. But another way of defining it, I think, is you look at some prospect lists. You look deeper down on a prospect list for a team that might acquire talent. And so I was looking at the Dodgers, and behind Michael Busch, who I really want to see what kind of power numbers he puts up when they start playing again, is Andy Pages. A guy that could put together at least the power. I don't know. France doesn't have no speed, so sort of power and okay plate discipline could come from Pages, could come from the Dodgers. But I doubt it at this point because they just keep acquired Noisy, and like they have such a loaded team. At some point, they may have to DFA him or just put him in a package and send him somewhere. But here's the name. I think I have Ty France. And it's occurred to me over the course of this. I've got it. It occurred to me when you were talking about plate appearances in the spring. Jason Vossler.
Oh, Jason Vossler. Okay.
He used to be with the Padres. I think his prospect time just ran up. I don't have right in front of me like what the transaction was, but now he's with the Giants. He's got something like 30 plate appearances this spring. His numbers in the minors when we had them show plate discipline, okay contact, and power. His projections look terrible because he's 27. But and there's a lot of age at level, changes going on there. But he could be one of those, maybe a little bit more like Mike Yastrzemski, but also I think like Ty France, a guy who was given an opportunity right in his peak age range, and enough of an opportunity to make a name for himself. Now it's getting a little bit crowded on that Giants depth chart now with Tommy La Stella and Wilmer Flores and Donnie Solano and all those guys, Dubon on the infield. And so Vossler may not make the team out of spring, but Donnie Solano is a pretty big regression candidate. I mean, the BABIP is super sky high on him. Wilmer Flores is okay, but he's not going to stand in front of somebody if they really think they've got something exciting, right? So I think, and there's enough guys near the end of their careers where a big injury, might be meaningful. Like if Brandon Crawford's a step slow already, maybe he starts playing some second base for the Giants. As much as that seems crazy to think of, Crawford was the oldest dude, the oldest shortstop in baseball last year. So
I got one more name to throw. Yeah, there's definitely Vossler makes sense because San Francisco, it's kind of wide open, especially in the outfield for some playing time, and some significant injuries in the past of Alex Dickerson too could open up a lot of playing time if he unfortunately goes down at some point again. Eli White in Texas is a name that I see popping up from Levi Weaver from time to time. I know Leody Taveras is the future in center field, but they don't have great center field depth. If Taveras falls on his face, which isn't unheard of for a player that young, he could go down and come back next year or later this season and then be fine. Eli White would probably be the guy that's playing. Yeah. And someone's got to play that spot. And White has power. He's got speed. A little bit more swing and miss than you'd like to see. Looking at the 2019 AAA numbers, the K rate jumped up to 27%, but he does walk a little bit, and he's one of those guys that he's tooled up. I think there's a little bit of everything in the profile there. So I think Eli White could be a guy that comes out of nowhere.
Twice the OPS of Leody so far this spring.
I mean, I don't want to ever just overreact to a spring, but
yeah, right.
But Leody at price was a guy that I wasn't necessarily buying into for cheap speed, because I think when we first talked about him, I said the situation reminded me a lot of Oscar Mercado, even though I think Leody Taveras is going to be a really good defensive center fielder for a long time. Like, even if he's not good enough to be an everyday big league hitter in the long run, Leody Taveras will hang around and play good defense in center field the way that Jake Marisnick hangs around on major league rosters, the way that let's see, Albert Almora is probably tracking at this point in his career. So there's a lot of value just in those tools alone. But I do think in the short term, we are right to be a little bit skeptical of Taveras as a hitter, despite some of the success that he had in the shortened season.
Yeah, that could easily happen. White was playing a little bit last year. I had him on my labor roster for a while, so they don't hate him.
Yeah, did see a little bit of time last year. Didn't do a lot with it, but just getting there gives you an idea how they feel about him, and the usage this spring has been pretty.
He cost me my title. No, he didn't.
Jake
Luis
Cave
Severino
almost cost
did.
me. Oh yeah, Severino. So Jake Cave almost cost me a labor title once, which is be a terrible way to
by just being terrible when you had to play him.
Yeah, I think I had to throw him in because of someone being hurt, and he had a 0 for 4, and it was ugly. It was really close to losing a point in batting average because of Jake Cave on the very last day of the season. Have you ever wondered what is fact or fiction when it comes to taxes? TurboTax tips can help. It's a quick and easy way to learn how to maximize your tax refund. Expert tips for real people in 5 minutes or less. Simply search TurboTax tips wherever you listen to podcasts. Stressed out and can't relax? Take an Eagle Moon Hemp CBD gummy to unwind. Use code ATHLETIC for 30% off CBD site-wide at eaglemoonhemp.com/shop. They already have the best prices online and in stores. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on these discounts. That's 30% off site-wide at eaglemoonhemp.com/shop. All Eagle Moon Hemp products are vegan, low sugar, use organic practices, and are made from award-winning crop. Just in case you didn't know, CBD is not marijuana. It does not get you high. CBD may help to relieve pain, nausea, seizures, anxiety, and depression. Get 30% off all CBD products site-wide at eaglemoonhemp.com with the promo code ATHLETIC. Their products are pure, proven, lab-tested, and superior to other CBD on the market. And the best part is they're way less in price. Throw in the discount code, and you're practically getting a product for free. That's eaglemoonhemp.com with the promo code ATHLETIC. Try them out while winning free products. Just go to their Facebook page and leave a review, or follow them on Instagram. A winner is chosen each week and sent a free product. Check them out and let us know how you like them. That's eaglemoonhemp.com with the promo code ATHLETIC. And growing up, cereal was the best part of being a kid, but I had to give it up because I realized it was full of sugar and junk that I really shouldn't eat. Thankfully, there is Magic Spoon. 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Only 140 calories a serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. And we've got exciting news. Magic Spoon is releasing 2 amazing new flavors this month for a limited time only. We're talking about cookies and cream and maple waffle. And if that isn't the most comforting, indulgent combination, I don't know what is. This is the ultimate treat-yourself combo, so make sure you get some while you can for a limited time. Or build your own box. Available flavors to build your very own custom bundle are cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, and cinnamon. And if you're listening in Canada, Magic Spoon now ships there as well. Go to magicspoon.com/rates to grab the new limited edition cookies and cream, maple waffle, or a custom bundle of cereal to try today. Be sure to use our promo code RATES at checkout to save $5 off your order. This offer is now good anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, but only when you use our code at checkout. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/rates and use the code RATES to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode. All right, we had a bunch of great questions come in to the mailbag over the last few weeks, and there's another one here about Platoon combo research leaderboards. This question comes from Andrew. Just curious if you have go-to queries or custom leaderboards for projecting or monitoring platoon splits for hitters or projecting good pairings. He also asks, how long does it take for a platoon split to become meaningful? This is particularly helpful if you're playing in a daily moves league where you can really mix and match and take advantage of how teams are utilizing players in those matchups.
Thousands of plate appearances. It takes thousands of plate appearances. And that's not even just a D. It's an S. DS. Thousands of plate appearances to believe a platoon split. And a reverse platoon split is almost never believable. You'd almost never project a reverse platoon split for a player because you need thousands, and it's not thousands of plate appearances overall. It's thousands of plate appearances in the split. It's just awful. It's mathematically awful. It's not something you'd ever project. But at the same time, you'll see that teams use players certain ways, and you see that the Dodgers use Jock Peterson a certain way, his whole career. So there are definitely players that I don't know how teams figure it out. I don't know how teams figure it out because the math is supposed to be that you regress them to league average in platoon splits until you get past like 1,200 plate appearances against lefties, and or is it like more against lefties than right? I forget which. I think maybe it's 1,200 against lefties and 2,000 against righties. That you regress it most towards league average, but teams see something right in a way that a player plays. And I guess my guess is if you've got a guy who's projected to be overall kind of close to league average, then maybe you only play him when he has a platoon advantage, especially if they're in a position that doesn't give you defensive value. Now, if you have like a shortstop who's good defensively and projected for like a 100 WRC plus, then you're like, okay, yeah, fine, go at it. I don't actually care about your platoon splits. There aren't that many platoon shortstops nobody really does that, right? They just want to have a guy that goes out there. But if he's like a left fielder like Jock Peterson, right, then you kind of say, you know what? If we put him out there only against righties and get a 120 WRC plus, which is kind of what they got from Jock Peterson, then we just find a righty outfielder is easy to find. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, I always long-winded, me. But I would say that think about the position they play. Think about the team they're on. Are they more like the Orioles or Tigers who kind of want to see what they've got and play them every day and then maybe settle into platoon later? Or are they more like the Dodgers, Brewers, Rays, where they're going to come up only within their good platoon advantage, right? Like I've talked to people around the Rays that say that Mike Brosseau has like a non-zero chance of playing full time at third base at some point, right? But he's old and he doesn't project all that well, and they're probably going to be a competitive team. So the bulk of the opportunity is going to be for him to play against lefties wherever it is on the infield.
So a couple things, like the main thing that has the gears in my head turning is trying to figure out what teams care about when it comes to the platoon splits, right? Because even if you got to enough playing time, the thousands of plate appearances you need for those numbers to be meaningful, I think you could make a pretty compelling argument. The player's going to change a lot in that time. Like, you're not the same player in the first 500 PAs of a 2,000 plate appearance sample as you are at the end. Like, physically, you're going to be different, right? You might be bigger and stronger. You might be older and slower with like worse skills. Like, you could have enough skills growth or erosion to be a totally different player by the time you get to the end of that window where it's meaningful. So that's That's on my mind. But then I'm looking at it and saying,
yeah, it's a moving target, right?
the moving target.
Maybe you could have had more opportunity early, but
Right.
then you're just bad late. Yeah.
Right. Like if you're Brandon Lau, and I know he was a lot better in the shortened season against lefties than he was in 2019. In 2019, Brandon Lau had the highest strikeout rate against lefties for any player who got at least 60 plate appearances against lefties in the last 5 years. 52.9% K rate from him in 2019. I wonder if it's something granular like
but what
that teams
happened?
look at.
But yeah, maybe. I think maybe you'd regress certain parts of a. Yes, I think that you might regress certain parts of a platoon split. Like I think, yeah, strikeouts and walks. I think because ISO, like an ISO on a platoon split is like, or like a slugging on a platoon split is like what? Like that's so much bad ball noise. It's so few balls in play sometimes. But strikeout rate. But what happened with Brandon Lau? When they gave him more opportunities against lefties, the strikeout rate regressed towards league average, right? Like the platoon split was not as dire when they gave him more chances, and that's probably because he's such a good hitter against righties that a normal platoon split would still have him be around league average against lefties.
Right. Like,
that's what you would expect.
I mean, it's impossible almost to be that bad in the long run. So like just natural, like even if the skills weren't going to change at all, it seemed statistically unlikely that he would continue to strike out that much because it was such an outlier. Right. But I do think with Lau, I think the thing that makes him different is defense, right? I mean, like if you look at defense for guys that are kind of on the cusp of losing that playing time, a good defender, shortstop is the best example of this. A good defender at shortstop, like you said, will not lose playing time because of their platoon splits, because you just don't mix and match that way. It's just not the way teams are built. But if you have a unique sort of defensive value based on the roster construction, you might get those chances to play in the bad split. You'll probably drop in the batting order, right? You're not going to hit in the same spot against righties as you do against lefties. That's how teams can counteract it a little bit. You could still get that playing time, and then you do have that chance of skills growth. You do have that chance to make adjustments and to possibly get better. I mean, I've always thought this, like,
and you're upping your sample. You're upping your sample. You're just giving more chances to know what your true talent is, really.
Right. Yeah, you're getting more looks. Like, how many left-handed pitchers are there? It's still like 18 or 20% of the pool, right? It's a relatively small number. So when you're coming up as a young player, you just don't see that many lefties. So I feel like it's a really difficult thing to predict, because some guys, it's gonna like click in. Something's gonna work. Some cue, something they pick up on after 500 plate appearances might actually enable them to sustain a new level. Other guys never find it. Like, it's such an individualized thing that I wonder if trying to evaluate everybody through the same lens actually leads you to make more mistakes.
Yeah. I think it is something, though, that you can look to the organizations for guidance. Just look at which teams traditionally get the platoon advantage the most often, which teams platoon a lot. It's interesting because the Indians lead the league in platoon advantage, but they don't actually do it with platoons a lot of times. They just have a ton of switch hitters. That's one thing the Indians seem to really like. But the Rays and the A's and the Dodgers are teams that really platoon. So if you've got a guy coming up in those organizations and you're worried or you're thinking about it, then just pretty much consider that they will play with the platoon advantage at first and have to play their way into full-time play.
Yeah. It's a good way to think about it.
Edwin Rios is a right-hander, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I've only seen him
kind
play
of puts
a handful of times, but he's a righty.
A little bit of cold water on how excited you should be about Edwin Rios, I guess.
Wait, Rios is a lefty. I'm thinking of somebody else. Sheldon Noisy is a righty. That's the guy.
Noisy is a righty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I use the splits leaderboard, by the way, for just breaking things down quickly. You can split it out by years. You can do multi-years together. I think that's probably the best tool out there. It's a tool over at Fangraphs just to get a good snapshot of how any group of players does versus lefties versus righties, whatever it is that you're looking for. So I'd recommend kind of using that. Do you have any other tools you use for that?
I haven't seen any. There are some. Who has minor league splits?
There used to be a separate site for it, and I think it went away
like
a few years ago.
Farm or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think I knew that somebody had minor league splits. Anyway, we'll look that up for you, see if there's anybody that has minor league splits. A lot of those sites go away because they're just scraping.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the question. Andrew had a question here from OJ. He writes, your conversation about how the short season would affect innings thrown this year suggested a question. Did losing nearly 50 games in 94 have any sort of impact on 95 starters innings or anything even in 96? And I think it's a great question, but I think the hardest thing about applying past stoppages and shortened seasons to the present is just that pitching is not handled the same way now that it was 30 years ago, right? Like it's just a totally different mindset. And so much of my concern, I guess I'll say, as far as how I think teams are going to manage pitching comes from teams not having the most logical or scientifically driven reason behind making these decisions. I just think it's still more of a feel thing than I'd like it to be. And that's why I think workloads are going to be altered because of teams messing around, not because of pitchers being unable to do what they normally do.
Yeah, that was something that one person said in the front office to me, was that like even in the past they actually didn't have that much science behind innings increases, and they would just kind of like look at the data and say, oh, this guy looks like he hasn't been hurt that much, let's just add 20%, and nobody knew where that number came from and why they did that. So I think the better teams are going to be out in front in terms of monitoring every sort of little thing. So they'll have the Motus sleeves on them. They'll have the Rapsodo in their bullpens. And if like the arm slot drops 2 inches or the velo drops off, they'll just stop them in that bullpen and say, we're just going to skip the next start. We'll say a little bit of fatigue, something nebulous, and we'll call somebody up, or we'll use one of our long men out of the bullpen. I think there's going to be these Freddie Peralta-esque, Julian Merriweather guys that are, doing 2 inning stints in the bullpen who, oh, hey, today, whoever's in the starting rotation, Lindblom's arm, something didn't look right in the Rapsodo. We want to just have him take a rest. Peralta, you're taking Lindblom's next start. And that's going to be really hard for fantasy owners to take care of and to follow along, because I think some of those things will happen on a daily basis, right? They're going to have there's going to be data on a daily basis coming in that makes them make these decisions. And so even on a Sunday, you say, oh, Lindblom's start is on Wednesday and it's on the road against the Pirates. Love it. I'm putting him in my lineup. And then it's like, nuts. I would have loved to put the Freddie Peralta against the Pirates in, but we didn't even know he was going to have that start. So that part I'm foreseeing is going to be really crappy. And that's why I kind of prefer daily leagues without thinking of the rest of my life or my wife or my children or, all that. I would rather have a daily league, because then you could say, oh, I'm going to put Freddie Peralta in instead. And you could maybe handcuff some guys. If you have some Brewers starters, then you can get Peralta too and make sure that you have, the guy who'd come in for them. But in weekly leagues, which help us retain our sanity, because having something like 15 daily leagues would turn us all insane. In weekly leagues, we're also going to have that insanity where we're just going to, and that's why, like, I love when we had Nick Pollock on, I love him to death. And I love that he like looks at early season schedules and stuff. And he's like, I think one of the deepest divers when it comes to pitching schedules. And I love the Razzball weekly forecaster, right? That takes into account schedules and who's coming up and does it. And I think on a weekly basis, you're going to be a little bit better than on a monthly basis. And then you're going to be a little bit better than that than you are going to be in spring training. When you say, like, I believe that Alec Mills probably has an early good schedule, but there are certain schedules where he's like, oh, he's going to be our 4th starter instead of our 3rd starter. And you're like, and you throw all the papers up in the air, you go, darn it. Now he's in Colorado. So, there's going to be a lot of that. I think there's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah, it's going to be messy, but I don't think it's going to be as bad injury-wise as some people think. I think it's going to be more teams proactively messing with things more than anything else. And I don't know if that's going to have any sort of negative long-term impacts. I don't really think it will. And lowering someone's workload from 180 or 200 to 150 or 160
for 1
year. Does that change anything for 2022? Probably not. I think looking at the historical numbers too, I was looking at the year-over-year number of pitchers used back around that strike shortened season. And there was already a trend happening a little bit where relievers were becoming a little more prominent around that time. We had expansion at a couple different points. So the number of pitchers used by the league as a whole ticked up on a couple of occasions. It ticked up in 93 when the league added Florida and Colorado, and it ticked up again in 98 when the D-backs and Rays joined the league. But we did see a little bit of an uptick in 95 relative to 93, with that 94 season, of course, being the strike shortened season. So maybe there is
lots
something
of pitchers
to this.
being used.
Yeah,
lots of pitchers being used.
But compare today's game to that. It's insane how many more pitchers are being used now. In 1995, with 28 teams, there were 552 pitchers that appeared in the game. In 2019, 831 pitchers were used. So, yeah, different era, and the kid gloves will be on. I hope they don't overdo it.
Makes you want to take the fifth starters much more than the sixth starters, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of, they have the role at least to begin the year. It's almost like the idea of like, don't take that many people who are already injured, because you're going to have a lot of people who are going to get injured.
Or guys that are going to get skipped. Yeah.
Don't take that many pitchers that are not even in the rotation yet, because you're going to have many people in your rotation that are not going to be in the rotation later.
I mean, trying to wait on Gonsolin in May, it's like if you really do think there's going to be more injuries, then you won't have to wait as long. But it's a crapshoot. Who's actually going to get hurt, and are you going to be able to hold those guys when someone else gets an opportunity to throw 5 or 6 innings first? And I don't know. I'm trying to have any injury optimism whatsoever on draft day this year, because I don't want the headache. I don't want that headache in a normal year, but I want to have as much flexibility as I can possibly have. If I'm going to spend a roster spot on a player who's not playing right away, it's a possible star prospect. That's it. It's not a pitcher who's going to miss a month. I mean, Carlos Carrasco had a setback with his hamstring. Is he undraftable? No, I just don't want him, because I don't want to wait 3 weeks or whatever it takes for him into the season to come back. So I probably won't have Carrasco, at least in my leagues that don't have IL spots. IL spots obviously change things quite a bit, but a lot of leagues don't have those.
Yeah, I got the Luis Severino share in AL labor because we have unlimited IL. And in some of those drafting holds with like 50-round drafting holds, I took a couple shots on Luis Severino types. And I ended up with Luis Severino in a lot of places because Sale goes first, and then Syndergaard goes, and you can let Sale and Syndergaard go and take Severino almost like 5 rounds later, and it's the same play, right? So in those drafting holds, I have some Severino shares, and then I have the same idea. You can watch Wander Franco go, and you can watch a certain amount of top prospects go, and then you can take Joe Adell pretty late. I've taken Joe Adell in bench spots in 50-round drafting holds, in TGFBIs in my bench slots. So I'm willing to take a shot on a bench slot when it comes to those guys. But like you said, I'm agreeing. One. And I think we had a Twitter question today about Gonsolin versus Paxton and Montgomery. And I at first liked the idea of having Gonsolin because he had price. But you said I'd rather have guys who are in the rotation to the beginning of the season, just like we were just saying. And I think you convinced me.
Yeah.
So I think I might rather have Montgomery in that situation.
Montgomery has looked really good this spring too. not the reason why I want him specifically, but I think having the job already is a pretty nice leg up to have. It's sort of like when people in fantasy football season, they say, well, should I also get the backup running back too? And my argument most of the time is, well, no, get someone else's backup running back. That way, if their starter gets hurt,
two shots at
you got two starters.
Yeah,
you're not like if they're both playing, you're splitting workload. If you get two guys,
you know
in the
what's
same
been
backfield.
messing me up with that is that in the draft and holds, I don't mind some handcuffing. Because you have no pickups.
Right, that's a different, totally different situation. With the 50 round.
And I think that's what he was talking about was a draft and hold. So in some of these draft and holds, I like handcuffing because you're like, I own Dodgers SP5. And it's a pretty good spot to own. And I own it. It took 3 roster slots to get there, which is not ideal. But when you're drafting really late, sometimes, there's not that many options anyway. So handcuffing. And I think bullpen handcuffing kind of works in some of those leagues. But I did have somebody say like that they drafted like 4 Royals relievers, and they were like and none of them was Scott Barlow. And they said in the chat, well, if Scott Barlow, and I think it might be a listener, he said if Scott Barlow gets the saves this year, I'm gonna kill myself. I was like, DVR thinks it's gonna happen.
Wow.
And then you had 4 roster slots trying to lock down the Royals closer.
You got to diversify. You can't take 4 shots in one bullpen because there's a chance that it's the 5th guy. It's just the way it goes sometimes.
I did take Enoli Paredes behind Ryan Presley, and I was just like, these are the 2 guys I like best in that bullpen. Paredes is throwing 99. I don't know. I figured that was an all right handcuff, but you're right. Once it gets to like 4, you're like, no, you're what's going to use on this?
Yeah, try and take a couple swipes at different pens just to have multiple closers because you're only going to get one out of one team.
What's the question? How did we get here?
That was a Twitter question that you brought up from the Cut Line Championship, which is ongoing.
But before that was something else.
Before
Platoons?
that,
You're still answering the platoon question?
No, it was OJ's question about pitcher workloads and how things changed previously shortened seasons. But unfortunately, I just don't think there's a lot of guidance from those past years.
It's just gonna be chaos mostly. Yeah. But the general piece of advice is take a guy with a role before with a guy without a role, because it's gonna be such a mess anyway.
Right. You're not gonna want to wait any longer than you have to for someone to get innings in a year like this. This episode of Rates and Barrels is sponsored by Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets combat all forms of ED. It can help men gain extra confidence for when it's time to perform. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code RATES at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com with the promo code RATES to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. The NCAA tournament, the men's tournament, is underway on Friday, and listeners of this show know exactly what that means. Whether you're a diehard fan rooting for your alma mater or just trying to get in on the bracket fun, this is the week to kick your feet up and enjoy wall-to-wall college hoops. At The Athletic, our team of hoops experts and insiders bring you all the latest news, trends, and insights on the big dance, plus our picks for every single game on the slate in Indy. I wish I felt better about my Badgers on Friday going up against North Carolina in that 8-9 matchup. Now we're partnering with BetMGM to bring you the best exclusive offer to bet alongside us and win. For the first round, we're offering a free year subscription to The Athletic when you bet just $1 with BetMGM using the promo code AthleticMM. You heard that right. $1 gets you a full year of The Athletic for new customers, a full year extension if you're already subscribed. So works for everybody. Plus, when you pick alongside our team and win, BetMGM will give you an additional $100 bonus. Register with BetMGM using bonus code AthleticMM and bet $1 to win $100 when any of the Athletics picks win their first round matchup. Plus, we'll give you a 1-year free subscription of The Athletic so you can experience the absolute best coverage of the tourney. Go to betmgm.com and use the promo code AthleticMM when you sign up. New BetMGM customer offer. Paid in free bets. Visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In Tennessee, call or text the red line 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada. All right. It's time.
I went and looked at the bracket while you were talking, and my alma mater is not on there. Maybe when they do get on there, I'll be more interested. And because it's local here, when I was a 6-man at Stanford, all 5 years I was there, and went to all the games almost, and saw Jason Terry and was Borchard, were the Borchard twins? There were two sets of twins. There were the Collins twins, and then the Lopez twins. I saw the Lopez twins, the Collins twins. I got into like verbal shouting matches with Richard Jefferson all the time. We didn't like each other. And I used to throw my hair out for games and yell things like, "Get a haircut, hippie."
You were yelling that?
Yeah.
Do you think Richard Jefferson would remember you? Like if you heckled him now, would he remember you from back then?
I doubt it, but there was a few times where we were looking straight at each other, yelling at each other. So I don't know, maybe. I doubt it though. Probably just some other white dude from Stanford. You know? Like it's pretty white school, so but the fro might have helped.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have
it's a fun time.
Look.
It's a hard time for us to have bandwidth to like really sit down and research a whole bracket and really nail the bracket. Sometimes I just like fill out a bracket, but I was looking and like there's a number 1 seed called Bay, B-A-Y.
Baylor.
I couldn't even figure out who it was. That's how far gone I am. I haven't done a sheet in a couple of years, but power to you. Good luck. It'll be a fun weekend. It's a fun time. I don't speak ill on. I love basketball, so I just don't have the bandwidth to do anything about it right now.
Yeah, I'm not good at filling out brackets anymore. I don't know if I ever really was great at it, but I think leaning on other people is something I actually do now. I can just watch the tournament and totally relax and not think about it. Whereas if I'm watching baseball, which this is not a complaint, I'm thinking a lot more about the implications of everything I see. I could watch college basketball and just be a fan. So I think that's kind of a nice little.
That's how I feel about the NBA. Like I watch the NBA as a fan, and I'm kind of a local fan, and so I'm just like I'm a Warriors fan, and it's fine. It's kind of cool that they're not that great, Like I'm like, ooh, like who's gonna be? Is Wiseman gonna be good? Is Poole gonna be good? Like. But I don't have to spend too much time thinking about it and like really breaking it down. I'm just like, yeah, they're going to be good. Go team.
Well, before we go, beer of the week.
We got Prospect of the Week, our beer of the week. That's a pretty retro episode, man.
It's a throwback, and man, I need a beer like very badly. Like I've got a keeper league auction starting in a few hours. I'm gonna have to wait until we get far into that to crack a beer open because it's about a 5-hour auction. So I don't want to get loopy before the last hour or so. But what do you got for us this week?
Well, I've got breaking news. I got an announcement. It's the first time I've ever done this, and it's really cool. And I hope that I can send some to you, DVR, and we'll see what happens. But I have collaborated with the brewery. And so without having tasted it, I'm giving it beer of the month. I told them what goes in it. So I helped consult. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to take credit for it. I was just a bit of a coach on this one, but We came to the ABV, 5.2%. Crusher, spring baseball, here it comes. We came to a name, Ephus. Love it, Ephus. Nice. And the brewery is Old Irving Brewery in Chicago. They make a Beezer. And one of the things I said was, what if we made a half Beezer? Because they have a Beezer, double Beezer, triple Beezer. I said, what if we made a half Beezer? And the idea is to do a Crusher hazy pale that people who drink Cellar Maker would recognize. But the hop bill is a little bit different. Instead of doing, Citra, who's like the big bopper, and building the lineup around that, we did more of a balanced lineup. It's Kohatu, Kashmir, and Motueka hops. Those are 2 New Zealand hops, and then the Kashmir brings a little bit of lime and melon. So should be pineapple-y with a little bit of melon. Smell great. It's fermenting right now. Ephus from Old Irving Brewery. And if you're in Chicago, please go drink it and rate it and review it, because if it's popular, they'll do it again. And that would just make me super happy to have a beer that I collaborated with take off. And I just think that this is the kind of beer that I would love to drink. I like, when I'm opening my fridge these days, all I want is either a 5 or 6% West Coast IPA or a 5 or 6% hazy pale. So that's where I'm living right now. Maybe it's more like 7 to 8 on the West Coast IPA, but those are the 2 beers I'm drinking right now. So Ephus, baby, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to keep it a lot lighter ABV wise, especially now that it's finally warming up here in Wisconsin. Our friends at The Athletic, Brian Bennett and Brian Hamilton, put together a beer guide with a local brew for each team in the men's tournament, which is pretty awesome. So from Madison, they chose Working Draft, a brewery that I've talked about a few times on our pod. Pop Culture Hazy IPA is the selection there. Highly recommend that if you can get your hands on it. I don't know if it gets that far outside of Wisconsin, but the cool thing about that is there's a good chance that a beer mentioned in that piece is available near you, no matter where you are, so long as you're somewhere in the U.S. So plenty of good beers to choose from. I think I've got 1 beer left from the beer box that you sent me. It's, I think it's one. It's got the Starburst on it from Baltimore.
Oh, it's the one of those crazy sours.
Yeah, I got one of those left. So
one of the full tilt sours where they blended in some gummy worms or something.
Yep, I think this was a pink Starburst, one of those. So I got that to look forward to this weekend. So that's what's on tap for me.
Just nutty.
It's going to be delicious, though. I'm excited. I'll have that probably about 11 o'clock tonight, and that'll be my nightcap. It'll be a one and done kind of night for me with a big keeper auction coming up. As Eno mentioned, lots of good stuff going on right now, though, at the site. You can get in for $1 a month
like
to
my
start.
Chat right now.
Eno's chat. Right. So $1 a month to start. Go to any piece that Eno or I wrote and just click on it, and it'll pop up as an offer for you. So that's pretty awesome. If you feel bad about $1 a month, you think that's too cheap, you can actually go to theathletic.com/rates and barrels. And I think it's $3.99 a month to start if you go to our URL. So, we appreciate that if you go the longer route, but $1 a month is a heck of a deal to start out. If you just click through on one of our pieces, you can do that on Eno's latest article. You can do that on pitching rankings. You can do that on my rankings, my rookie piece. However you want to get there, all those places will bring you to that $1 a month deal. On Twitter, he's at Eno Saris. I'm at Derek Van Riper. Be sure to check out the Ding U, by the way. It's presented by BetMGM. If you'd like to get to know more about March Madness, they've got that covered on the Daily Ding podcast feed. That is going to wrap things up for this episode of Rates and Barrels. Good luck if you've got drafts this weekend. We are back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.